Hey everyone, back tuning into this morning's video. Going to have a look at the weather over the next few days and going into the end of the month again for today's video. Very complicated weather patterns to try and make sense of. And a lot of uncertainty still within the forecast for the bank holiday weekend, as there very often is over the bank holiday weekend. There's a video ad just sitting above this weather video at GazWeatherBiz.com. Please play it. You'll be supporting GazWeatherBiz.com by doing that. So we're going to start off though by having a look at the situation in the United States. Very devastating tornadoes last night, leaving over 90 people at present count dead in Oklahoma. Very, very serious weather situation. Just want to explain a bit about why that's happened. It's a classic sort of spring pattern for the United States. Really, we've got this ridge of high pressure out to the northwest, bringing down cooler air from Canada. We've got some very hot air coming up out of the Gulf into these southern states and into these southeastern states. In between, we've got this area of low pressure being spawned through the Midwest, and that's very often a classic sort of spring pattern where those air masses meet. You get very intense thunderstorms, and sometimes those thunderstorms do produce these devastating tornadoes. So have a look at the upper air temperature. You can see the heat here in the east and the southeast of the United States coming out of the Gulf, really pushing that hot air up, meeting this trough of low pressure in the Midwest, and the cooler air coming around the backside of that trough out of Canada. And where those air masses are meeting, the air is shooting up into the atmosphere, producing those extremely violent thunderstorms, huge hailstorms you get with this sort of pattern, and you also get the potential for a lot of rain. And of course, if the storm starts spiraling, then you start getting the tornadoes being set up. We've got the risk of more tornadoes over there through the course of today. Actually, this area of heavy precipitation here being indicated in the southern Midwest is more thunderstorms, more violent thunderstorms, more torrential rain, and with that there will again be the potential for more tornadoes. So expect to hear stories of more disruption, more devastation possibly in the United States. Very serious situation for them. Our weather by comparison is always much more tranquil. We complain about our weather, we often get annoyed by our weather, but our weather in comparison is very much on the benign side. And but what else we're looking at really over the next few days is a cold northerly wind and some showery conditions. This is the chart for Thursday, the 23rd of May. I've been talking about this northerly wind for some time, coming down from the Arctic, so it's going to be a real blast of northerly air. The isobars going up into the Arctic, bring down that northerly wind. We've got the high pressure out to the west and the low pressure to the east. This wind will be bringing showers. It'll also be bringing quite a drop in temperature. Now, as we run through to Friday, this area of low pressure is developing off the east coast of East Anglia. That could be quite a nasty area of low pressure. It seems a bit trivial to talk about in terms of being nasty after what we were just discussing in the United States, but it's quite a deep area of low pressure, possibly bringing some strong to gale force winds if it comes off down the eastern coast, and probably bringing some quite heavy rain as well. The precipitation forecast showing a hook of really quite heavy rain around that area of low pressure down the eastern side of the country. Difficult to say how far inland that's going to get this morning. It's predicted to get as far in as the Midlands, but certainly eastern counties from North East England down to East Anglia would be really quite wet as we go through into Thursday night and Friday. Eventually through Friday, that low pressure is being taken down in towards northern France, taking the rain away there. We're still left in quite a showery sort of northerly wind though, and a cool day it is predicted for Friday, with temperatures barely into double figures away from southern and southeastern parts of the country. Now, going out beyond this, everything gets rather slack. We might build this ridge of high pressure in as we go in towards Saturday. But beyond that, the high pressure starts to weaken. We start to develop this area of low pressure out to the Atlantic. I'm not sure about these charts at all, really. I'm not convinced, even now, that the models have really got the pattern pinned down for this bank holiday weekend. But as we go into bank holiday Monday, this isn't looking very good. This area of low pressure is developing out to the northwest of the country, and then that pushes in across the country through Monday into Tuesday. Look at this, by Tuesday we've got an area of low pressure sitting right over the top of the country at 9 990 millibars. That will be bringing a very poor bank holiday Monday if it's. But I say I'm not at all convinced that the mods really have the pattern for the weekend pinned down. But the GFS this morning is certainly very unsettled for the bank holiday weekend. And going into next week, that low pressure is maintained across the country, no doubt bringing showers or longer spells of rain once again. And even as we get to the end of the month, Friday the 31st of May, we're still in a disappointing sort of weather pattern. We've got low pressure to the east, high pressure to the west, more or less maintaining the scenario that we start the period off with, actually, bringing down these very cool northerly winds, not going back to right to the Arctic. It's not that far north with the northerly wind, but nevertheless it's still a cool wind coming from the north, and it still is really quite showery as well. So certainly nothing on the GFS to suggest there's going to be a heat wave or even a fine spell of weather coming up anytime soon. Now the ECMWF has that low pressure I was talking about on Friday in the North Sea, but it doesn't make as much of it as the GFS. So there is that low pressure sitting off the east coast at midnight on Friday. It doesn't deepen it, so we're not getting gale force winds coming down the eastern coast, but it's probably still produced some quite heavy rain here on the east coast. But as I say, it doesn't quite make quite so much of it as the GFS. That low pressure is then down across France as we go into midnight on Saturday. We've got this northerly wind coming across the country. This ridge of high pressure could be useful as we go into Saturday. It's quite a weak ridge, but it may just be enough to give us a fine-ish sort of day on Saturday. But it's very hard really to get the pattern, get the detail from this pattern, I should say. It's very difficult. As we go into Sunday, well, low pressure sort of in situ there in the North Sea. Hard to really say what's going on with that. I suppose it's probably bringing up, for at least, some showers to the eastern side of the country. But this is a very difficult pattern. As we go into bank holiday Monday, well, then we've got low pressure sort of in situ over the top of the country. I'm really not at all sure about these charts that the moles have really got this yet. That's a very odd sort of pattern from the ECMWF this morning for the weekend. It is plausible it could come off, but I'm not convinced about it really. If it does come off, we're looking at the very least at a cool weekend with quite a lot of showers. As we go out into next week, beyond the weekend, we're still sort of maintaining slack low pressure and trying to build a ridge up to the north and the northwest of the country. So we're still keeping winds coming around that from a north or northeasterly direction, so it's still cool going out into next week. And really that's how we go through the week. By the time we get through to Friday the 31st of May, 10 days away, well, we've got this general situation that we saw on the GFS. So the general ideas are still the same. We've got the high pressure in the Atlantic, the low pressure out to the east, bringing down a northerly wind. At the very least it's cool and it's quite showery too. GEM doesn't make as much of that low pressure again, so I think the GFS is a bit isolated for that low pressure on Friday, to be honest. Where is the low pressure in the North Sea? Not as deep or as intense as we see on the GFS, but nevertheless it does bring it down across the country as we go into Friday. So the GEM is very unsettled for Friday with showers or longer spells of rain. Not the gale force winds running down the east coast, thankfully, but the GFS is showing, but still a very unsettled day and still really quite cool. Beyond that, the GEM then tries to build in a bit of a ridge from the Atlantic. Saturday could be the best day of the bank holiday weekend. It may just have a weak ridge of high pressure over us. We may do it on Saturday. But as we go into Sunday, well, again, very complicated sort of pattern. But can't you make much sense out of this? There's low pressure scattered about. There's a bit of a ridge trying to build up to the north. Very difficult to say what that means in terms of actual weather. At the very least, it is cool, maybe showery as well. And then we get this low pressure in situ over the country again as we go into bank holiday Monday. Very similar to the ECMWF as it often is. And then beyond that, the GEM sort of takes that low pressure down to the south, tries to build a ridge up to the north. And that's really how we go into the end of the period. Really, we've got high pressure to the east, low pressure I should say to the east, high pressure to the west, and overall a very unsettled sort of weather pattern. So it's pretty difficult to make much sense of this, to be honest. I'm going to attempt to do a 5-day forecast tomorrow, just trying to put a bit of detail on this. But as I say, it's a difficult pattern to pin down. Certainly at the very least, we're looking at a cool and showery sort of period over the bank holiday weekend, but the detail is very, very elusive. 5-day forecast where I'm going to attempt to come up with some detail, but that's it for now. Thanks for watching.